I'm Corbett Wall with DV Auction, here with your cattle market summary for the week ending January the 8th, where outside pressure towards the end of the week once again took the market down after a really impressive performance through the holidays and into the new year. Live cattle futures on the February contract ended the week down 65 cents on Friday to close at 132.87, which is $2.93 lower for the week. Feeder cattle on January contract was down 4.40 on Friday after being down real hard on the days previous to that, to end the week at 159.42, and that was down $7.48 for the week. But it's just these outside things, and this time it was the stock market being down so hard, and it's a derivative from the China economy and all the pressure that came through that with the dictatorship coming in there and shutting down the Chinese stock market to try to limit the losses, which just made things worse. And it just seems like it's always something that takes the cattle market down that doesn't have anything to do with cattle. And that's what happened again this time. I really wonder sometimes why we look at all these fundamentals, because the market's liable to go take a big rally right in the face of heavier supplies and vice versa. It's just that the futures market, everything hinges on that, because especially now that we've seen a slip in this market from these all-time record highs, these lending institutions make everybody be hedged up to their eyeballs. So the market is just dictates everything, the futures market does. And yet, even though there's so much interest in it from the industry standpoint, in the whole scheme of things, it's still a relatively small traded commodity there, so it's very vulnerable to be manipulated by big money outfits and investment funds and things like that. So it's just really, we don't have a real good feel for what could happen. We think, or we thought here coming through the holidays and into the new year, that it appeared that there was some feed under this market, and that we would probably get fats into the 140s somewhere, and then maybe maintain that for a while. But now we've lost this ground late in the week here, falling really hard, and it's really anybody's guess what this thing is going to do. It just really depends on what the futures market does on a Monday and Tuesday of the whole way this thing is going to move this week. We thought that fat cattle would gain ground last week, and they probably had a good chance to get $1.40 Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday, but weren't able to get that trade done. So then after the stiff losses on the board, we did have some light trade from 130 to 133, mostly 132 and some 133, which was $2 to $3 lower for the week, which is really not too bad. $2 to $3 lower from the big gains that we saw last week and through the holidays. Your dress trade was mostly 210 to 211, which is $1 to $2 lower, which is not bad at all. But we were just on the cusp of really getting our market position back, or a whole lot of it, getting up to 140 or very close, if not reaching 140. But it's not going to happen right now, so it's just anybody's guess what's going to happen this week. But slaughter was pretty decent, really, 527,000 for a post-holiday week, which was exactly the same as the same week a year ago. So we have kind of kept in pace with that. Your box beef cutout values have made huge gains, $35 to $40 gains through the holidays and into the new year. And they continued to gain some ground. Of course, they're not tied quite so closely to China or the futures market, but more so just what folks are paying for beef. But we've always expected these cutout values to start to taper off and level out and then lose some ground by the time we get to February. So we know that we don't have a whole lot of time to gain ground in our cattle market before we start losing a little bit of traction on the beef market again. This week, your choice cutout ended at $226.24, which was up a little over $19 for the week. Select ended the week at $219.83, which was up over $20. But as for the conditions out there, we're really seeing a mild winter so far. I know it's still early in the winter season, but we've seen a mild winter so far in the Midwest and places like that. Even though we had that cold football game that we all watched this past weekend, and we've had the big blizzard down in the Southern Plains, but really, this is the first really cold weather we've had, and it came as a welcome sight to a lot of guys I know in the Midwest. And as for myself, it shored up these lots a little bit that had been so sloppy from that cold rains that we received really from Thanksgiving all the way through up until now. Just been getting a lot of rain, cold rain, and then the temperatures have been staying moderate enough that it's just really been sloppy around. But finally got some real frigid cold temperatures, which froze those lots up and at least made it where guys can get around a little bit easier. And animals too, it does make it dangerous when it's slippery like that. But usually whenever it's slop and mud and lots that are freezing, you got enough texture in there to still be able to get around. But this week, your cash feeder cattle sales still ended the week $10 to $20 higher from those huge gains that we saw on Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday. But, you know, it may have been as much as $30 higher at the peak last week, and then it tapered off some. A lot of sales were $10 lower there on Thursday and Friday. But still gained quite a bit of ground from the position that was lost when it come through this last wreck there. But you look at some individual markets on Cattle Market Central. Look at Burwell, Nebraska on Friday afternoon, a little after 3 o'clock. They had a short load, 54 head of 710-pound steers, bring 172, which is pretty respectable there. And then across the way there at Winters, South Dakota, they had a big load of 628-pound steer calves on Friday, bring 185.50. But that's all for this week. Don't forget to get on to cattlemarketcentral.com and put your log in there. And you can go in there and get a lot of information, and you can do a search and go in there and do a special report and get some parameters on some weights and classes of cattle you want to see. And you can see all these individual sales come up right there on your laptop or your tablet. And check out DV Auction for all our broadcasted sales coming up. And we got a lot of big bull sales coming up this spring bull season. But from Maysville, Missouri, we'll talk to you on Wednesday.